What makes the difference between a good businessman and a good person? The answer is ethics. Before we get into our conversation on ethics and legality and the Wirecard scandal, if you're wondering where any of my information came from, the articles I've used are down in the description of the video. So just click on show description, you can see all of that information. Let's start our conversation with the difference between legality and ethics, because legality is quite easy to define. It's whatever is illegal where you come from. The US has its own set of laws, Europe has its own set of laws. If you break the laws, you're being illegal. Quite easy to define. Ethics gets a bit more muddy. Ethics is based on a population, and every group of people or assembly of people, a civilization, since the beginning of time has had some form of unspoken code of ethics. Soon after, philosophers started talking about what makes ethics and writing books about ethics and trying to define where all of that comes from. And slowly through time, we've all kind of created this idea, this general idea of what is right versus wrong. Let me run you through an example. Let's say I take 20 of your dollars. That would be stealing and is illegal. No, I'm not going to take your dollars. But let's say instead, hypothetically, we're hanging out, we're going to the movie, you're my friend, I forgot my wallet. I'm like, hey, can I borrow $20? I'll get you as soon as I get back home, I got the money, I can send it over to you. But I know full well, I only have $1.50, there's no way I can pay you back in time. Is it illegal? Maybe, maybe not. But whatever it is, it's definitely unethical. And you knew that. At least I hope you knew that. But I didn't have to tell you it was unethical for you to know it was wrong. It's that unspoken code of what's right versus what's wrong. And that's what makes us a good person versus a good businessman. Too often, companies are so focused on the bottom line or on our revenue numbers that we're looking for the easiest way to make profit, the fastest way to grow our companies, and we're not worried about how we're doing it. This is exactly what got the company Wirecard into so much trouble. You see, what they were doing was inflating their bottom line, basically making it look like they were doing better than they actually were. Take our I'll loan you some money example, right? They're saying, hey, we have the money to back this, we have the money to pay you back, we swear, just don't check our books. They were inflating their bottom line by about $2.3 billion. Convincing all of the investors in the stock market that they were doing significantly better than they actually were. That they were outperforming their competitors. When in actuality, they didn't have the money to back that. Now, this is illegal. It's called market manipulation. The CEO, Marcus Braun, stepped down soon after this was found out, and soon after that was arrested for market manipulation. That is illegal. But where this becomes unethical is when we start to look at EY's portion of the problem. EY is an auditing firm that was checking the books of Wirecard for over 10 years. EY's sole purpose for existence as an auditing firm is to check the books of major companies to make sure they're not committing market manipulation, they're not committing fraud. That's the sole purpose of these companies' existence. That and a few other things, but their main purpose, audits. They audited Wirecard for a decade and never pointed out the market manipulation, never pointed out they were inflating their numbers by $2.3 billion. Why? We don't know yet. That part is still being investigated, but what we do know is failing to call that out, failing to point out that this company, Wirecard, was lying to all of their investors. That is definitely unethical. And whether or not there's coercion is soon to be found out, and it might turn out it was actually illegal as well, but until the rest of that unfolds, we know it is definitely unethical. So what's our backlash here? What does this mean for business going forward? In a world that's so readily available with information, where the average person like you or I or your neighbor across the street can readily access businesses' information simply by going to Yahoo Finance and seeing all of the stocks for all publicly traded companies and investing right there, People care about this information, more so than they used to, because they can actively get to it. It's available to them. Anyone can invest. Which means anyone can be lied to by these massive companies. And we're supposed to trust the auditing firms that protect us, that make sure businesses are telling the truth about their numbers. When auditing firms fail, the investors suffer. And so what EY has started to do is they're spending billions of dollars reworking their auditing system, retraining their employees, and changing the procedures that they conduct audits. And I can assume that with this transparency of information and the average Joe being able to invest and being invested in the stock market, we'll actually see several other auditing firms start to make this process, start to become more public with how they audit companies, and start to change the way they do things. Because Wirecard is not the only example of this. EY is not the only company that's failed to point this out. Auditing firms need to up their game. Because if they don't, it's too easy for a good person to think like a good businessman and to start making decisions that are unethical. Once again, if you have any questions about where this information came from, you can check the description. All the articles that I used are in there. Thank you for listening.